everybody, today we have another Bible lesson and we get to learn about a girl named Esther, and we're also going to learn about a king. So this is a really cool story and I am so excited to start telling it to you. Now the story starts with King Xerxes, and he is on his throne right here. And he's having a party, and he has all of his friends at his party. But his queen isn't there, and his queen's name was Vashti. And he said, you know what? I really want my queen to be at this party. So he says, hey, you, go get my queen, please. And he goes, and he's going to go get Queen Vashti. But you know what? Queen Vashti said, no, I'm not going. I will not do what the king tells me to. And he comes back and he goes, uh-oh, sir, Queen Vashti is not coming. And the king's like, do what? She's not coming? That's it. She can't be my queen anymore. And he gets rid of Vashti. So there's a whole uproar in the kingdom. And the king needs a new queen. But do you know what? God was using all of this because he had a plan. A very special plan for a girl named Esther. And we're going to go over here and we're going to find Esther. Now Esther's, both of her parents had died. And she was being raised by a man named Mordecai. And Mordecai was family. And when her parents passed away, he took care of her. Now, when King Xerxes needed a new queen, his soldiers came and said, we're coming to get all of the beautiful ladies, and we want the king to pick which one will be the next queen. So, they had all of these ladies that they found throughout the country, and they took them to the palace. And they were going to get them ready to see which one King Xerxes would pick to be the new queen. God had a plan for Esther, and it was starting to unfold. So all of these ladies go to the palace. Now, it was a very big deal to get ready to be queen, and it took a long time. Get this, all of these ladies were in the palace for an entire year, getting ready to see if they would be queen. They spent an entire year getting ready. Then, at the end of the year, they were going to go and meet King Xerxes, and he would see which one would be his queen. So, all of the ladies, one by one, come and meet the king. So we have our throne and we have our king. And he meets the first lady. And he's like, she's very nice, but I don't think she's the one for me. And then he met another lady. And he's like, no, she's just not the right one for me either. And then finally, he met Esther. And he fell in love with Esther. And he said, you will be my queen. So Esther was now the queen of Persia. And she lived in the palace with King Xerxes. After this happened, King Xerxes hired a new person to work with him. And this gentleman's name was Haman. And Haman loved it when people bowed down to him. He loved having people say, you're the best, Haman. Haman is the best at everything. He's like God. And there was another gentleman who worked at the palace, and his name was Mordecai. Do you remember Mordecai? He was the one who raised Esther. That's right. So, when Haman would be walking around the palace, and people would start bowing down to him, there was one person who would never bow down. And that was Mordecai. Mordecai told them, "I'm a Jew. I only bow down to God. I can't bow down to Haman. That would be wrong." So Haman was so angry. He was furious that this one man would not bow down to him. So he went to King Xerxes and he said, "Sir, there is a people group called the Jews." Because Mordecai was a Jew, he was going to take out all the Jews. And he said, "King, we need to destroy them. We need to destroy all the Jews because they don't obey our rules." And the king said, "Well, that sounds wise. Okay, I will put that rule in that everyone can destroy the Jews and steal their stuff." So the law was made, and the Jews were going to be destroyed. And that meant Mordecai and all of the Jews were going to die. And Mordecai sends a message to Esther. And he said, "You need to go tell the king what's happening and that all of these Jews are going to be destroyed and we didn't do anything wrong. You need to save us, Esther." And Esther sends back a message and says, "If I go to the king and he doesn't call for me, I will die. You're not allowed to go see the king unless he calls for you." So she was very worried about going to talk to the king without him calling her. So Mordecai sends another message and he says, "Who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Mordecai knew that God had a plan for Esther, and he was seeing that this was part of the plan. So Esther responded back and said, "Gather all of the Jews together and fast and pray for 3 days. Don't eat anything for 3 days and pray for me. And I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish." So she was ready to die and do what God had planned for her. Now, after the 3 days, Queen Esther decides it's time to go to the throne room. Now, the king had not called for her, and if he decided that she was being disobedient, he could have her killed. So she comes in, and the king sees her, and he thinks, "Wow, she must have something very important to tell me, and I love her so much. I must find out what this is." And he has favor on her and tells her, "I'll give you whatever you want, Esther. It must be so important for you to risk your life. You can have whatever you want." And Esther tells him, "I want a banquet with you and Haman, and there I will tell you my request." So she sets up a beautiful banquet with food and delicious things for the king, and she invites Haman. At this first banquet, the king says, "What is your request, Esther? What is it? I will give you up to half of my kingdom. What do you want?" And Esther tells him, "Please, king, if you will allow me to have a second banquet, I promise that at the second banquet, I will tell you what my request is." So the king allows this, and he goes to the next banquet. And this is the next day, and they're at the second banquet. And the king says, "Please, please, tell me what your request is." And the queen said, "Please rescue my people and rescue me from death. We are going to be murdered and sold as slaves." And the king cannot believe this. And he said, "Who would do such a thing?" And she said, "I am a Jew, and my people, the Jews, are going to be slaughtered. Please save them." And she said, "This man, Haman, he is the one. He is the one who caused all of this to happen." And Xerxes was so angry at Haman that he would endanger his beautiful queen. And Haman was punished, and all of the Jews and Mordecai were saved. Their families were saved, and their children were saved, because Esther obeyed God, and she was there because God had a plan. And guess what? God has a plan for your life. He has a very, very special plan for you. Do you know how you figure out what God's plan is for you? You read your Bible and you pray each day, and God guides you, and He will lead you and teach you what you should do. I hope, just like Esther, that you are able to obey God and do exactly what He would have for you. He loves you so very, very much. And who knows whether He has you here for such a time as this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye, guys!